Mhm. So Angelique, thank you so much again. We know it's early for you on the West Coast. I'm actually here on the East Coast today, although I'm normally in Chicago. So thanks again for taking the time this morning to talk all about the metaverse, Alo Yoga, Web 2 versus Web 3, and all the different nuances that go into this space. But first, just to dive in here, I'd just love to learn a little bit more about you, your career so far and how you got to Alo Yoga.
Yeah, sure thing. Well, good morning and good afternoon if you're on the East Coast, Jonathan. Lovely to be here with you. I am the VP and Head of Marketing here at Alo Yoga. I got here in an interesting way. I started my career early off on the retail side of things within digital marketing. And I had always really been interested in all things, early tech adoption, early digital. And so I started my career, like I said, in retail, but it was really at a critical point in time where things in the retail industry were heavily shifting from, clienteling to in-store, really to shifting over to e-com. And so that's where I, started wetting my feet with all things transition from in-person to truly shifting off to digital and e-com. And I think that has stayed with me throughout my career. Obviously that's, close to 15 years ago now. I guess was a really interesting point in time where I was able to touch on a lot of firsts, right? You were touching on the build of first websites for retailers. You were touching on the first and opening up of social channels for retailers, touching on the first of testing within AR, testing within, what it meant to do growth marketing, and now all the way through to testing within Web3. So definitely a passion of mine throughout my career. I had a digital marketing agency for about 4 years. We specifically did all of digital for most of the L'Oreal brands in Canada. And when we sold our agency, I rather, moved to the US, started with Sephora, joined a really innovative group down there in San Francisco where we did all things social, all things, innovation lens first. And that kind of continued to be the gist of where my career was heading. I had a short stint at Dolby, so really focusing in on the audio visuals and how that can amplify marketing campaigns. Then was at Stitch Fix, and now finally at Alo Yoga, where I am staying for a while because I love it. And really being able to be at the forefront of not only building and continuing to grow community and brand, but truly innovating and diving into Web3. So
that's fascinating. And the real most important question is, are you a yogi?
I am a yogi. I am a yogi. So there's many different ways of being a yogi, but I do practice meditation each and every morning to start off my day. And then not obviously, but we have yoga at lunch every day at the office. We're mostly an in-person culture now. And so every day from 12 to 1, we have yoga. At 5 p.m., we have sound bath. And so those are all things that I continue to weave into my day.
And dogs are included in the yoga, right?
Dogs are included in the yoga. So for everyone tuning in, Jonathan and I had, just a meet and greet call the other day. I was at the office today. I'm from home. And you could see how wild it was with all the puppies in the office.
So, in our conversation and just researching Alo a little bit, it's fascinating to me that you're playing in so many different spaces. You have apparel, traditional D2C, but then you also have the retail side, and you also have the class community side. Yeah. So I'm curious, when you talk about your brand as a health and wellness centered company or brand, what does that mean, and why did you decide to move in that direction?
Yeah, I mean, first, I think I could answer the later part of that question. I decided to move into a wellness brand because in the height of the pandemic, right, as we were all thinking through, what is really important, the health and safety of myself and my family, of my loved ones, there was nothing that was more important than obviously our health and our wellness. And getting the opportunity to go at a company that helps us tune in to that positive subconscious, whether that be via doing yoga throughout the day or meditating throughout the day, or just really focusing on our mindful movement, was something that was important to me, just values wise, and connected and resonated with me as an individual. And then more largely so from a brand perspective, right? And marketing on the brand side, because we are such a holistic wellness offering brand, you can have many touch points with us. And that's what's so amazing about our community. It's, you can be coming to us because you want to participate in yoga and you want to find the very best apparel or gear, whether it be mats or yoga blocks, to help you do that practice. But you could also not be interested in that. You could be interested in finding the absolutely most, clean skincare there is in the business. And we have beautiful skin and body care made here in California that's clean, green, phthalate free. And that might be how you want to experience wellness for yourself. But again, on the other side, it might be via Alo Moves, which is our application and app and platform where you can, take a HIIT class throughout the day, take yoga, take meditation, take breath work, listen to a sound bath to go to sleep. And so whatever your inkling into wellness may be, or whatever your preference is, it stays true to our purpose to help bring that to the world. But there really is something for everyone. You could also be on the far side of being like, hey, I want to look like I go to yoga and I just want to go to brunch and look cute, and that's okay too, right? If that's how you start getting into it. So there really is something for every community here, and I think that's wonderful, both on the men's and women's side of things.
And has the journey for the brand, is that grounded in customer insights? That kind of that vision or that brand purpose, does that stem from a deep rooted understanding of your customer?
Yeah, absolutely grounded in consumer insights. Really important for us to understand who we're speaking to and who we're engaging with. Our community is at the core of everything that we do, and so we consistently, always look for feedback, always look for innovations that speak to them. We know that our consumer overall is an early adopter. So probably leading into our next conversations about Web3, but our consumer is definitely an early adopter, and he or she want to be at the forefront of what's new in the space. And so whether that may be experiencing new types of workouts or experiencing things that enhance their workouts, we dabble in all of those spaces, and that definitely is who he and she are.
That's fascinating, though. I think that's a perfect segue, because what I was going to lead into next was kind of getting into the brand's entry into the metaverse, and we'll get to that in a second. But as just a quick kind of backstory for myself, is I've been talking to brands about entering the metaverse for about 9 months now. And I remember it was early 2022 when I saw that your brand had built an experience in Roblox. And I was just kind of shocked and surprised, right? Because when you think of a brand entering the metaverse, I don't think Alo Yoga is the first one that pops to mind, right? So I'm really curious to hear the story behind that decision to enter Web 2 specifically. So maybe we'll start with Web 2 metaverse and talk about your decision there and also the challenges that you may have faced internally to be able to sell that project through to internal stakeholders. So why don't we start with entering Roblox and everything that you learned there, and then we can move from there to Web 3.
Yeah, and hopefully it may not have been the brand that you've thought of back then, but it sure might be one now, and that's really exciting for us. We decided to dip our toes within the metaverse, definitely with a Web 2 experience, and that is with Roblox specifically. When we were kind of evaluating what we were going to do, we found ourselves at a really interesting point in time where we knew that we wanted to dive into Web3 significantly, but we knew that first we had to meet our consumers where they were, and also knew that whatever we were going to do was going to feel consistently authentic to everything that we do, that had a strong wellness and mindfulness component to it. And so knew before even going out and building it that we wanted something that resonated not only true to Alo brand, but true to what our audiences were looking for in us. And that's, again, helping folks lead the very best wellness lifestyle that they may so choose, whatever that may be and whatever that looks like. And so when we dove in, we partnered with Roblox in large part due to the capabilities on the platform, knowing, and I think this might have been, this definitely rings true to what Martin was saying previously in the last session, that, you just have to test it out. And brands, like, the best advice you could do is just test it out and go out and see, and knew that Roblox was the perfect platform to help us do that. We found ourselves at an interesting time where we knew we were going to dive in, but at the crux, or at the height of the pandemic of the start of this year in January, we were the official wellness partner of New York Fashion Week. And the first week of January, coming back from the holidays, we were like, okay, there is a high possibility that we are not activating in New York City at Spring Studios, and that fashion shows will get shut down. So what do we do? How do we still ensure that we have a wellness experience at Fashion Week? And we had already started kind of, brainstorming what our web 2 experience would look like within Roblox. And so moved and shifted timelines up to be able to meet it in time for Fashion Week, which is February 10th. Thankfully, Fashion Week still took place, so we were activating on site, but our experience is really what led us, our experience within Roblox. And what that looks like, it's basically a sanctuary island in which you come in, all of a sudden you're greeted with meditation and calming music, visuals that are highly, not highly stimulating, but rather calming instead. And you come into that experience as your avatar. You can redeem, of course, yoga mats and clothing, but that's only based on completion of meditation, of yoga. And so you really have this wonderful place where you can come and do, free yoga classes, or join a community that's joining in meditation at any given point in time. And let's say you come 3 days in a row, then you were able to unlock the hat for your avatar. If you came 5 days in a row, you're able to unlock, let's say,
gamified the experience.
Yeah, gamified the experience. And that was really wonderful. We were very impressed and surprised with the metrics. So we're 3 months of launch now, but within 24 hours, we were at 1.2 million views, which was really, really exciting because we launched at the same time as other quite notable experiences within Roblox, and we were just crushing it.
And as a view, is the same thing, a view is the same as an engagement, or are they distinct?
It's distinct. It's a unique user going in the experience and playing the game, for lack of better words. It's an experience, but engaging. So not an engagement in the sense of not individual counts. Like, you could redeem a mat, that would have been an engagement. You could click into a meditation and sit down with your avatar, put your phone down, and then actually meditate. That would have been an experience, but that's not what this was. This is really unique users coming into the platform. And so that was within 24 hours. Now that we're 3 months down the line, we're actually close to 33 million unique users and visitors to the experience. And
I was shocked when you said that to me.
Yeah, so were we, pleasantly surprised. And not only that, we have 39.6 million pieces of digital fashion being worn on avatars. And so, it was really wonderful seeing the experience that folks really wanted to unlock digital fashion for the avatars, or on the flip side, they really wanted to continue their meditation journey and their yoga journey with us, and came, 30 days in a row consecutively to unlock more and more. And for us, that gamified aspect is wonderful. And it was just like as a treat, or sorry, not a treat, but like a thank you to folks to continuing to prioritize themselves and take time for their mindfulness. But at the same time, that means, we had millions of folks coming in and meditating with us for months on end, and continuing to do so. And that really is meaningful and wonderful, and rings true to our purpose and vision here at Alo.
And I get two separate questions on that. One, did you have any challenge getting buy-in from other stakeholders internally? Because I know you're very passionate about it, and it's clear that if you're passionate, it's going to happen. But number two is, were you able to engage with these attendees outside of the metaverse?
Yeah, those are two great questions. And sorry, I know you asked that previously about stakeholders. So in terms of selling it in, I think it it was not necessarily a challenge, but it was like, oh, well, how does this continue to build our mission and purpose here at Alo? How is this linked
Mhm.
to everything that we do? And um, I think in socializing it internally, because it didn't necessarily, it wasn't tied to something specific at first. It was like, hey, we're going to dip our toes, we're going to take our time testing out the waters. For us here at Alo, a test and learn is always a win, and that I'm incredibly lucky to have that for myself, but for my team and my organization. And test and learn can be a KPI and is a KPI, so that wasn't necessarily hard.
That's music to my ears, as we say that all the time.
Yeah. Yeah. And so totally see eye to eye on that. Both Alo and Admix, I think we have a lot of similarities and synchronicities here. But yeah, definitely true to us. And it was more so, hey, we're actually going to push this up a month and a half. We're going to take our time. We're going to look at how this is built and socialize it. But I think what's important for everyone here to know is that, I mean, of course, this is Web 2. But the notion of a metaverse definitely is Web3 leaning. And so I think it's important for us to approach projects that are Web3 leaning in a different way that we do approach Web2, right? It's kind of an internal shift at companies to take that lens. It is speed to market. It is test and learn. If you fail, that's okay. You can do it again, as long as it's ethical, right? And based in your values, not only as an individual, but in your company values. And so us moving up the timeline did require some buy-in, and that was very quick in doing so. Maybe it was in 2 executive meetings and just showing the larger vision for it, the larger roadmap, which started with this experience in Web 2, but then continued to grow into how we're next going into Web 3 and what that looks like for the entirety of 2022. And again, this was at like maybe 3 weeks into January. And once that was seen, of course, it's it's definitely an educational moment for a lot of folks, right? I specifically collect and invest in the Web3 space,
Mhm.
right? As an individual. And I don't want to assume that my peers or counterparts are doing the same, and that's not fair to ask that. So it really was on me to educate and to let them know, this is what NFTs are. This is what the Web3 space looks like. Metaverse has so many meanings, but these are how they show up in various experiences and the various platforms that are at the forefront today. So it took some education, and I think that is wonderful for all kind of everyone at the company now, because everyone does have buy-in and everyone is excited for not only the success that we got in Roblox, but what's to come.
No,
Um,
that's great.
yeah.
Were
And
you
then,
going to keep on going?
well, no, I was going to flip over to your second question, but you may have wanted to pivot that. So
Well, we can get back to that when we talk about Web3 a little bit,
yeah,
because I am curious. Some of the attendees may not have a great understanding of Web2 versus Web3. So I think now is the perfect time to for you to give your perspective on, how the two differ, and what is possible in Web3 versus Web2, and why you think the metaverse is heading towards a Web3 route versus a Web2.
yeah. I mean, to sum it in the most simplistic terms, right? The difference between Web 2 and Web 3 is ownership. And so that unlocks so many things. That unlocks things like co-creation. That unlocks things like remunerating artists and project leaders in a different way. That includes not only being part of a community, but owning that community and starting things within that community. And so it's highly exciting, especially for brands, just knowing that as we talk in the Web 2 space, or we have over the last few years about brand advocates, now heading into Web 3, it becomes much more than that. It's almost like brand owners along with you, and not in a scary way for any brands. But I don't mean to scare anyone. Like, your IP is still stayed and yours, but it's beautiful when you see that grow and change into something else that is that has kind of taken legs of its own. So for me, when we hear kind of co-ownership, it's definitely not terrifying. It's definitely exciting, and I think that is a mind shift for brand leaders out there.
Yeah, I've been reading a little bit about this idea, and I think this idea of co-creation with your consumer has been around for a long time. But I think Web3, as you're alluding to, really unlocks that, right? Because of the decentralized nature
Mhm.
and blockchain and leveraging DAOs and smart contracts, right? So, and I know I just threw out a lot of buzzwords there, but I really think you're right in the sense of there's just this co-creation element that is so inherent in Web3 that just doesn't exist in Web2. But I am curious on that content piece.
Yeah.
How do you see content creation differing in Web2 versus Web3? And are there certain themes of authenticity that you look for between the two ecosystems?
Yeah, I mean, it could be as simple as just the nature, like how to explain it best. For example, in Roblox, you're unlocking pieces that are created by the brand and now for your avatars, but then are not permutable in different realms, and you don't own them, but you kind of like own them for that specific time and place, but you can't change them or have impact to them. Whereas if you bring this to a platform like the sandbox, for example, everything that you build within the sandbox becomes an NFT and is tied to the blockchain. And that, in that simplistic term, that's really exciting to look at, because you have one that's like very, very static. That's like sold once, bought once, here's where it lands, can't be resold, it can't be moved into something else. Whereas this other one, like, one's linear and one can take like a zigzag path as to what that means next. So that's kind of the application of it. But what it means for creators out there is that you have ownership, and we're now greenlighting this shift, or we have been, not now, but we have been over the last few years of truly NFTs coming to life, and what the blockchain has permitted, that you're opening up access to artists, to different revenue streams, continuous ownership on the resale side of things. And so it becomes much more interesting where, in Web2 in the last few years, even on TikTok, we've seen a lot of folks be like, hey, I started that dance and I'm not getting any credit for it. Or like a lot of pushback from creators that have not been, or creators or brands, right? I don't want to, no dig on creators, but brands, let's say, that have been taking things that other creators have done and have not given them credit. Whereas on the blockchain, it's recorded and it's very clear where that ownership lies. And now you can also be compensated. So from a content creator side of things and the content creator economy, I think all creators should be dabbling their toes and experimenting, because this is how you fully own not only your art, but your livelihood, what you're putting out there, the experiences that you're giving to others. And that's truly game changing for the creator economy.
And I agree wholeheartedly. And a question though, I'm just thinking about this in more detail, is like the complexity of that ownership element, right? Because are there certain parts of the experience that you as a brand want to own? But then as we're talking about it, right, everything in Web3 can become an NFT in some regard. And some of those NFTs can be sold. Maybe some are not going to be able to be sold. But I guess, how do you navigate that complexity versus what your brand owns as an asset versus what you want your consumer or your customer to be able to own?
I mean, I know that is definitely like a scary thought for a lot of IP owners out there. But I see it in a slightly different light, where, if you're creating content in the Web2 space and you have UGC content that's created out there, let's say I put out a campaign, we have, a slew of different types of models that are the face and voice of it. Then there's UGC content that's supplementing it. I don't see that much different. I think that's amazing. That's flattering. That builds brand advocacy. that can also be transferred on to the Web3 side of things, where you'll have, your IP as a brand, then you may very well have derivative content and derivative kind of IP that's built out of that. And I think that is wonderful. Of course, that could be scary if it's a derivative project that is definitely not in line with your values. But of course, folks will know, like, oh, okay, user 3XYZ has created this. Like, they'll know it's not your brand. So from our perspective, I think it's flattering. It's UGC. It's part of something larger, and I think it's to be embraced. But definitely from a IP protection side of things, we wouldn't want another experience out there being called Alo in the metaverse and all of a sudden looks and feels exactly like Alo. That, of course, is an infringement, right? And I think all brand leaders would agree. Also, even all content creators would agree. Similarly to if you have, your @ handle of like Jonathan in the metaverse, and all of a sudden someone's using your face, voice, likeness, like that's not cool. But if someone is like, oh my gosh, okay, Alo did this, they did meditation, I got a yoga mat, let me paint on that yoga mat and let me use that as a canvas. And so when I rolled it out to meditate, it is, a jungle and it has butterflies flying out, and it's now this whole net new experience. I think that is wonderful. It's just part of what comes with Web3, and I think that's to be embraced.
I totally hear that. I think the pushback that you would receive on that is that some brands don't have that flexibility.
Of course.
Right. And you're in a very unique position as Alo, that you have kind of some of that essence at the core of your brand of co-creation. But I think some brands can't go that far. And on that note, I think if we just take a step back a little bit, because we're definitely going into the weeds a little bit, and I love that. But I do want to hear your perspective just in general of, okay, I'm a brand thinking about the metaverse. I'm concentrating. I've made a decision that I want to go into Web3 versus Web2. Where do I start? What are the first initial steps that I need to think about when I'm exploring entering Web3 and the Web3 different metaverse ecosystems?
Yeah, I mean, it's all up to your KPIs to start, right? What are you trying to achieve? Us on the Alo, like, are you trying to drive revenue and build a new revenue stream for your business? Are you trying to create net new art that could then be used back in Web 2 or back in even Web 1? Like, what does that look like for you? Are you trying to create community? Are you trying to grow brand awareness? So whatever your KPI may be, I think there's a valid route for you in Web 3. For us at Alo, it was definitely not about revenue generation. Everything was put out for free, but it was truly about nurturing our community and meeting them where they were, with our purpose and mission of leaning into mindful movement and mindfulness. So whatever your KPIs are, there's different routes you can take. It doesn't mean that you have to jump into the metaverse. You can look at the NFT route. You can look at how blockchain applications are used as tool sets within your company, whether that's loyalty or personalization or whatever that may be. So I think that would be the very first piece of advice. But then second piece is like, not be afraid to test and learn. You can go in small. You can dabble your toe. I think it's also really smart for folks leading a brand's entrance within Web3 to have firsthand knowledge. So whether that's partnering with strong partners like you guys, or whether that's informing yourselves and being in it personally, like I am, for example. It's understanding the space, spending actual authentic time in the space, spending time with those communities, even if they're not your brand's community. I think that's really, really important, and having a good kind of feel. I know it definitely is buzzy right now, right? Oh, I want to create an NFT, or I want to jump into the metaverse. But I think it's coming back to, like, why? What are the KPIs? Yeah. Why do you want to do
Always
that?
Start with why, right? Simon Sinek.
Always start with why. Yeah, I think I showed you. I have that in my office. That's like the basis for everything I do. Start with why. So yeah, would relay that back. It's yes, it's buzzy right now. And I could see a lot of brands perhaps being like, oh my gosh, I'm missing out. Do I have to create an NFT? Do I have to do X? The reason, like the actual answer is you don't
There's
have.
no right answer, right?
No, you don't. And there isn't a right answer. It's like, yes, you could test and learn, but you can wait and see, and that's okay.
And on that like test and learn front, I, I think it's an excellent mantra. But what does that actually mean in practice, right? What are, for example, in Web3, if we get into more specifics, what kind of would a test and learn agenda look like? Maybe that's specifically for Alo, but more so broadly, is that, as you kind of mentioned before, is it, releasing an NFT and looking at engagement, or is it then moving towards building out some type of experience, right, in one of these Web3 platforms and including different types of content to see what works and what is engaging versus not?
Yeah, I mean, it could be either of those things and many more. For us, for example, when we put out our KPIs for our metaverse experience, our first KPI was, will this be true to the Alo brand?
Hmm.
As long as if we even reach one person and they're able to come in and feel what it is to be part of the Alo community and like live and breathe wellness, and like all of a sudden that maybe they're playing games and jumping through hoops and other activations, and then they come into our sanctuary world and all of a sudden they're met with like this overwhelming sense of calm and music, and they could put their phone down, they can close their eyes for 10 minutes as we guide them through something. That's a win. That would have been a win. I shared this a few weeks ago with Brand Innovators, that I had a deck early on circulating that had, if we have 100 people come into our experience and they're able to live and breathe Alo and understand what Alo is, then that's a win. And of course, we've long superseded that. But again, it would have still been a win if we had 100 people, or even that one person that was like, wow, I'm new to Alo, or I've heard of Alo, but now I fully understand it. Let me kind of dive deeper into what this is for myself, for mindful movement. We were not looking for sales. We were not looking for revenue generation with our digital fashion. So that's what that looked like from a test and learn perspective for Alo. And I think it's good to have realistic expectations. Of course, mine sound unrealistic now with like the data that I've shared on our kind of the unique visits and what's been redeemed. But at the end of the day, it's that authenticity that rings true, because we still have a 91% approval rating within our experience. That's incredibly high for this duration of time. And that means that the authenticity and what we set out to create continues to ring true today. And that's probably more of a winning metric from what we can get back from that specific platform than the millions of users and views and redemptions out there.
From what I hear, and this is something that we say a lot at Admix when we're talking to brands, is thinking about the metaverse as another channel, right? Yeah. And you have TV for reach, you have social for engagement, and you have e-commerce for sales. And in the metaverse, it can be all of those things, right? It's a full funnel channel, but it's really picking and choosing the avenues that you want to go within that channel, and being authentic to not only your brand, but also to the audience and the community, right? If you're just putting up a storefront, right, a virtual storefront in the metaverse, that may, maybe you'll drive some sales, but are you building a long-term customer relationship? I'm not so sure, right? So I love that you talked about authenticity, because I assume your route into Web3 will not be just a storefront, right?
Yeah.
And so I'm curious how you guys are thinking about that in terms of what you already have your Web2 experience and that have the core essence of your brand, and how does that come to life in Web3?
Yeah, well, again, I, being someone who's personally passionate about the space and who's been, like I said, collecting and investing for quite a little bit of time now, I knew that we, as a brand, had to be in Web3, and Web2 for me, especially in the form of the Roblox metaverse, was kind of our dipping of toes to get into the space and to prove the business case out for what's going to be on the rest of the roadmap for the remainder of the year. And so definitely looking at what it means to further that for us. Obviously, none of that is public yet. We're a privately held company, so we're very close to the chest on these things, but it does involve looking at Web3 metaverse experiences. It does involve looking at cryptocurrency. It does involve us looking at applications on the blockchain and how that can help further our audience experience and consumer experience, all the way through down to, you know, how data is kind of shared back out. So it definitely is holistic, and it is something that we're investing in quite significantly with a lot of enthusiasm. But yeah, it's I think this, as a takeaway for brands, although I'm not sharing much right now, is a good learning that this could be like a platform like Roblox could be your dipping of toes to prove out what your next Web3 experiences can possibly look like.
Yeah, and on that note, how is setting KPIs for Web3 different than Web2? Because we all know that you're not gonna get 33 million, you know, unique views in a Web3 platform yet, but the KPIs can be totally different, and you might be able to achieve other impressive results that you wouldn't be able to achieve in a Web2 platform.
Totally, totally. Again, for us, it's an easy one. It is the same KPI. It's, does that experience ring true to Alo? If you're walking into it, if your avatar is walking into a metaverse experience in Web3, does that still resonate true? Of course, pending the different platforms, and there's so many out there that are wonderful and great, but they're still being developed and they're still being tested, right? And they're still nascent in certain capacities. You have to expect that the look and feel will be slightly different, or you have to expect different capabilities within the platform, or the platforms rather, to not be there yet. But I love partnering directly with the experiences and platforms and being able to test out net new things, whether that's you know, live broadcasting, or whether that's audio visual capabilities that are net new, or testing out a new format on how things come to life within that experience. So I love offering that back to the platforms and saying, hey, you know, we want to create something that's authentic. Again, if one user comes in and is like, wow, this is what Alo is, then that's a win. And that is shifting the mindset, especially in Web3, but also being able to offer something back to some Web3 companies that are out there, being cognizant that the majority of them are like, you know, they're a few years old, but a lot of them have come to light in the last 24 months. And so if you're willing to invest with them and to kind of co-create with them, that goes a long way as well.
No, I know that's, yeah, I very much agree with that. And we only have a few minutes left, so I wanted to briefly ask you, just on the future of Web3. I know this is a very broad question, but where do you think we're going? And then this question of interoperability, right? Like, how cool would it be if there was interoperability between Roblox and whatever Web3, experience you create? But we're not there yet. So I am very curious what your thoughts are on that, and just the overall, where do you think we're going in this space?
Yeah, I think we're heading to a place where like our daily lives can look and feel very different. Right now, it's of course like a nascent place for a lot of brands, but you can soon be, and a lot of companies are doing this that are Web3 nascent, but you can be hosting all of your Zooms and webinars. Like, this conversation could fully be.
Yeah, we got to bring this to the metaverse.
Right, we got to bring
obvious.
This, right, and so the components of like how AR, VR are going to lean into that. The components of creating net new economies that don't even exist right now are really, really exciting. The aspect of more visibility and shedding light on all sorts of creators and not just having brands kind of lead is really, really exciting. So where we're heading, I think, is definitely the part of the unknown, and I think that's what's most exciting. It's something net new to be experienced, and so yeah, I'm just really thrilled. Obviously, I'm passionate about this, and again, maybe too deep, so it's kind of a non-answer as well. But yeah, imagine a place and time where this conversation is now, we're now doing it in avatars, in you know, you might have gotten something in our Roblox experience, you're wearing our digital hat, but you're now wearing that in Upland, or you're wearing that in Decentraland, you're wearing that in the Sandbox. Like that's really
How
cool.
cool would that be?
Right? Exactly.
We need everyone to play nice in the sandbox, right?
Right. Yeah, we do.
Pun intended. Pun intended.
I love that.
And I know we only have a few more. Oh, I see Marty coming back, and I think we have to wrap things up. But is there anything we didn't get to, or any questions you have of me in our last moment here?
Yeah, I think the only thing that I would just, you know, want to emphasize is that this is about community, and it's good for brands to reach out to their community, whether the Web2 community, but also definitely the Web3 community, and learn from them, co-create with them, and have them be a part of this experience and journey with you. I think that's the most beautiful thing that you can have as we merge over from advocacy to ownership. So yeah, just wanted to close with that.
Great closing. Marty, I just will say, I think yoga is one thing that we should continue to do in real life, maybe also in the metaverse, but I think I think we want to keep it, you know, most of it in the physical world for now.
I mean, there's some benefits. So yeah, agreed. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you so much, Angelic. It was a pleasure.
No. Hey, listen,
today.
Thanks, guys. I apologize. Didn't mean to talk over you, but I have to say, Angelique, I love the approach Alo's taking. I mean, you really are looking at it from a authentic way and thinking about it, you know, from the right way, testing and learning, solving Web3 problems with Web3 solutions, which is also something that we really talk about. But, you know, the way that you've really approached it and your philosophy, I think, is really going to take you so far as a brand within this new channel. So looking forward to all the great things coming from Alo. And by the way, I keep bumping into Alo brands now. Everywhere. Now I see. However, I'm like, wait a minute.
Marty, it's coming to Chicago. Well, look out.
I know 2 months ago, I barely knew about it. Now I see it everywhere. I'm like, I got to get some gear.
I love that. Yeah. Next week in Chicago, I'll be right by you. So keep an eye out.
There you go. I will. Well, thanks so much, everyone.
Thank you.